Let's play a little bit of Mythbusters here. We did a video on it yesterday, like I just mentioned, but I think we need to take a second bite out of this apple. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, who I have tremendous respect for, has an article out there essentially saying that Nick Saban is anti-NIL because it hurts his best interests. And you all remember that show. I think it was on Discovery, Nick, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more clearly. It's a show on Discovery Channel called Mythbusters, and it's this group of guys that essentially put myths to the test to really see if they are legitimate. Like, I guess some of the old myths, Nick, if I can remember, was like, if you punched a shark in the nose, it wouldn't bite you. Like, you could actually fight off a shark. That was one myth that they had a machine and they busted that myth. Anyway, we're going to keep rolling here. There's some myths that need to be busted when it comes to Nick Saban. And the first myth we need to address is that Nick Saban is going to Washington, D.C., along with others, to meet with lawmakers to push back on NIL because it hurts what he wants to do. Because it's against Nick Saban's best interests to help his football team to recruit better and to kind of keep his edge in college football. That's the myth right now. Now, here's what I would say is actually happening. In busting that myth, here's the best scenario I could explain. If I drive a fast car, like for just this conversation, let's say I somehow drive a Ferrari. Some pretty good speed, right? And then lawmakers out of nowhere say, you know what? You don't need a governor on an engine anymore, and you don't need a speed limit anymore. And I'm over there saying, whoa, 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 are we sure we want to do that? Are we sure that's in the best interest of everybody? And I go talk to lawmakers and say, hey, this is a bad idea. Trust me. But then everybody else that drives a different car says, you know what? You just don't want us going fast like you. You don't want us to be able to get to where we want to go because you want to have the only fast car. That's not what's happening. That's not the case. Yeah, everyone's driving the speed limit because it's safe, because it helps us all. Regulation is a good thing. When you say everyone go as fast as you want, no rules, do what you want, that's not in the best interest of everybody involved here. I think that's what Nick Saban is doing. He's saying, listen, yeah, I got a fast car. Yeah, I got a program in Alabama that just churns out New Year's Six Bowls and has previously churned out national titles. Like, yeah, he's recruited well in modern college football. But him saying we need regulation is not him saying, woe is me, you're hurting my chances. Nick Saban's going to do what Nick Saban does, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this is not Nick Saban crying for help. He is saying, listen, college football is going to go on with or without me here at some point in time. I don't want to leave it in a place where I feel like it's headed in the wrong direction. Because NIL is not meant to be a recruiting tool. I talked to someone who used to be in the college world previously, just transitioned to the NFL world. We talked about NIL, and he's like, listen, man, it's not what it was for. It's supposed to be for college athletes to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness and get themselves something from their value. Not for high school kids to have a bag dropped on them and try and pick their school. More on that in a second. Make sure you're subscribed. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram, @JDPakel. Appreciate you in advance for that. Like the video. Let's get to over 100 likes, and we'll keep this party rolling. Okay, so thank you for that. So that's the first myth that had to be busted. Now, in that same vein, the other myth that deserves to be busted is that now recruiting is going to be tougher for Nick Saban. Too bad for Nick Saban. You recruited well? Haha, not anymore. NIL, brother. It's too bad now. Now the playing field is level, and you are in trouble. Okay? Think what you want to think. That's the myth. If you want to see it busted, look at the recruiting rankings. In 2023, number one class. Some people are saying the best class he's ever signed. That's what some people are saying. Look at 2024. It's got a top 3 class in the On3 industry rankings. I would feel pretty confident betting he will be somewhere within that top 3 when it comes to National Signing Day in December and the second National Signing Day in February. Nick Saban's not hurting when it comes to recruiting. Nick Saban's going to get top players because Alabama develops. Alabama puts guys in the NFL. And oh, by the way, they win a lot of games too. So Alabama's going to be just fine as long as Nick Saban's there. The other piece of that, which is based in a fallacy, is that kids are picking schools solely based on NIL. I don't think that's the world we're living in right now. Does it play a factor? Yeah, I think it plays a factor. But the large majority of recruits that we talked to at last week's On3 NIL Elite Series were saying, listen, I want to go that's going to help me in the long term. It's going to help me get to the NFL. You know who helps you get to the NFL? Well, look at the draft picks, Alabama. That's the school that helps you get drafted. And so NIL is not going to be a thing that hurts Alabama. That's the last myth I want to get to here. Alabama is using NIL as a tool. NIL doesn't hurt Alabama. You know who NIL hurts? Is the group of 5 schools. The schools that are having players perform and maybe aren't getting the money that they would like to get. And they say, I got a lot of talent. Maybe I'll jump in that portal. Or maybe somebody hits them up and says, hey, why don't you jump in the portal? And then they end up at a bigger school. So who's for the worse here? Let's say USF is for the worse here because they just lost that big-time wide receiver that was all conference, and now he's going somewhere else. This is purely hypothetical. I don't have a situation in mind here that I'm playing out, so if it matches up with anything that you're thinking about right now, purely hypothetical. Want to make sure that's out there. NIL doesn't hurt Alabama. NIL is only going to help Alabama in the long term. But when it comes to who's being hurt, like I said, it's the group of 5 schools, the have-nots. They're going to lose talent. They're going to lose top players. Alabama, when it comes to the NIL space, they're going to be able to be competitive if a guy does jump in the portal. If a top player does jump in the portal and decides to visit Alabama, Alabama's going to be able to say, listen, do we have the top NIL budget in the country? I don't know that for a fact. I don't think Alabama uses NIL as their calling card, but they're going to be competitive enough, I believe, along with the rest of the things they have at Alabama, like development, resources. Oh, by the way, the greatest coach of all time. Then they're going to be, in good position, or at least in better position to land that kid from the portal. It's not hurting Alabama. Nick Saban is seeing this and seeing how it's going to hurt the other schools and saying, listen, are we sure we want to do this? I'm going to be fine. No skin off my back if I'm Nick Saban, but are we sure we want to do this? That's what I think is happening right now. So for Nick Saban, this is not a thing that he is running from. This is something he's running towards and saying, I don't think this is best. Could it impact him long term? Maybe. Remains to be seen. But I don't think this is something he's running towards and saying, hey, it's going to hurt me. I think he's saying, hey, it's going to hurt our sport. Let's put some regulation on this. Regulation, for the most part, is a good thing 9 times out of 10. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.